You know the drill. Cake, presents, a familiar song. A birthday party just feels like this universal human thing we've always done. But what if I told you its origins are, well, not so innocent? Today, we're going to peel back the layers on the birthday party and find out why this simple celebration is actually at the center of a huge religious debate for millions of people.
So this is the big question, right? And it's something thinkers like Sheikh Uthman Ibn Farooq have really dug into. For a lot of Muslims, trying to figure out if a birthday party is okay, or halal, is a serious deal. It's a debate that weaves together history, identity, and the real roots of this tradition. Is it just a fun get-together, or does it actually cross a line?
Now, the first thing most people say is, come on, it's just cultural. It's not religious. It's about seeing family and friends, not about worship. And that makes sense. But from a religious legal perspective, the real question isn't what it means to us now. It's about where it came from. To really get the ruling, we've got to go back, way back.
And that brings us to our very first clue. The whole investigation starts with finding the first birthday party ever written down. The logic is pretty simple. If you want to understand something today, you have to find out where it began.
You know what's really striking when you look at the research is this huge historical gap. The first time a birthday is ever mentioned is ancient. We're talking over 3,000 years ago. But then you look through the Quran, the Bible, the Torah, and something's missing. There's absolutely no record of any prophet or holy figure ever celebrating their birthday. It seems the tradition started somewhere else entirely.
And here it is. The first birthday party ever recorded in a major religious book wasn't for a prophet. It wasn't for a righteous person. It was for the Pharaoh of Egypt, a guy who in those very same stories is seen as a tyrant who stood against God. So the documented starting point for this tradition isn't with people of faith. It's with pagan royalty. Okay, so the whole idea of a birthday party kicks off with the pharaohs. But what about the things we actually do at a party? The cake, the candles, making that secret wish. Where did all that come from? Let's deconstruct the modern birthday party piece by piece. And you might be surprised where this next part of the story comes from. It's not some obscure religious text, it's National Geographic. Research into the history of just, common things reveals a really specific and surprisingly religious origin for our modern birthday rituals. It turns out the whole thing was basically a detailed pagan ceremony. Step 1, the cake. The ancient Greeks would bake round cakes to look like the moon as an offering to their moon goddess, Artemis. Step 2, the candles. They'd stick lit candles on top to make the cake glow, just like the moon in the night sky. And step 3, the wish. Blowing out the candles was like sending a secret prayer up to the goddess with the smoke. And that's why you're not supposed to tell anyone your wish. It was a private prayer to a pagan god. So we've got roots in pharaonic customs and Greek pagan rituals. And this connection, it's not a new discovery. And it's definitely not something exclusive to Islam. Actually, for centuries, other monotheistic faiths have looked at birthdays with a whole lot of suspicion. Just take a look at this quote from Origen, a really big deal early Christian scholar. See, for the first Christians, they were trying really hard to be different from the Roman pagan culture all around them. So any practice they saw as pagan was a huge problem. Origen didn't just say, hey, maybe skip the birthday party. He said Christians should look at them with disgust, because he saw a direct line back to those pagan festivals. And then, for a completely different perspective, you have the Satanic Bible. It flat out says that the most important holiday in Satanism is your own birthday. The argument here is all about association. If a practice is rejected by early monotheists, but then embraced by pagans and Satanists, it makes you ask, who are you really aligning with when you take part? All right, so we've traced the history from the pharaohs, we've gone through Greek paganism, and we've seen how early Christianity and even Satanism view it. Now, let's pull all these threads together to really understand the specific Islamic verdict and the principle it's all built on. See, the final conclusion isn't random. It's not just pulled out of thin air. It's rooted in a single core principle in Islam that's all about how to interact with the practices of other religions, especially ones with pagan roots. And this statement from the Prophet Muhammad is the absolute key to the whole argument. The principle is crystal clear. Avoid imitating the unique religious rituals or signature cultural practices of other groups. So applying this, the question becomes pretty simple. When you celebrate a birthday, whose tradition are you really following? Well, based on all the history we just looked at, the argument is that the chain of imitation leads straight back to these groups. The pharaohs, who started the whole thing, the Greek pagans who designed the rituals we still use, and Satanists who see it as their most important holiday. And that's how you get to the final conclusion from this specific religious viewpoint. Because of its origins in pagan religious ritual, and because of that Islamic principle of avoiding imitation, celebrating birthdays is considered impermissible, or haram. It's not seen as some neutral cultural event, but as taking part in a tradition with a very, very non-Islamic religious past. Which leaves us all with a final thought, right? For a lot of people, a birthday is just a party. Who cares about its ancient roots? They're forgotten, they don't matter. But for others, those roots are exactly what give it meaning, or what make it forbidden. So it really boils down to a fundamental question. In our modern world, how much power should the forgotten history of our traditions have over our lives today?